Hey, is this thing on? What do you mean it's not recording? No, I'm not going to write my life story down. The only thing I'm writing is my payment contract. Do you know how long that would take? Oh, you're going to write it down? Am I paying you for this? You're going to do it for free? Sheesh. Well, I'm getting a cut if my story makes it big. Maybe people could finally see the greatness of Ratchettee. I'll try not to bend the truth too much. What? Wait, did you just write that down? Well, stop. Okay, throw away everything I've said so far. I know I'm not paying you. What kind of idiot is going to want to read this? You just wrote that down too, didn't you? Okay, let's just get this back on track. My name is Ratchettee to my nana, or Ratchet from my friends. Yeah, like the town. And as you might have guessed, I'm a goblin. Hey, are there any visual aids in this thing? What do you mean you don't know? Aren't you the author? I'm going to be on the front cover of the book, right? I thought this book was about me. You mean there are others? Yeah, but I didn't meet up with you guys until way later. I mean, a lot of stuff happened before we met. Fine, geez. I'll try to speak more visually, but I'm not making any promises. Now, where was I? All right, I'm a goblin. I have green skin, my hair is white, I'm 22, and nice people say I'm a rogue, and not so nice will call me a thief. But I'm neither. What I really am is a cook, and maybe an aspiring chef. Well, most of my kin think technology is the best way to profit. I know that the best smelling herbs and spices and freshest ingredients is the best way to get a person to open their gold purse. I remember when I was just a kid goblin, I tasted my first 5-star meal. I knew that this was how I was going to take a bite out of the world. And even as a kid, if I made something that tasted terrible but at least looked good, I would sit and watch them choke that foul meal down without complaint. Okay, there's something you should know about goblin breeding. Goblins are made kind of how you imagine. I mean, just because we were born green, that doesn't mean we're not mammals. I've heard of some crossbreeding with orcs and humans, not gnomes though. Ew. I'll give you a second to get that out of your head. Nanas do the hazardous and life-threatening job of taking care of goblin babies. You see, the first second when a goblin is born, they're as wild and feral as a cat with rabies. So we throw them in a dark hole in the ground and lock them up during the day. Try to block out all light. And throw food down there so they can eat. And yes, if you do fall into this hole, they will try to eat you. Even if you're a goblin, and even if you're the mother, but they won't eat each other. I always wondered about that. Well, not all of us, anyways. I heard of some sick goblin tribes wouldn't feed the baby goblins, and they would actually be forced to eat each other. At night, we put a ladder down in a hole with a fire going. The baby goblins climb up the ladder, and they stare into the fire until the morning. If the goblin is still feral, he will go back into his hole where he or she came from. If he or she is not feral, he or she might try to go outside and look at the sun. That's where nanas come in. They start breastfeeding for a few weeks, introducing tools and toys. But some of them are still feral, and Nana needs to be able to defend herself if a feral goblin tries to attack her with some of the tools she had gave to him or her to try to expand his or her mind. But I think I must have crawled into a feeding larder because I think I just wanted to eat good food, or food that tasted or smelled good. Maybe there was a restaurant not too far from where I was raised because me being a goblin, I'm not too interested in building or tinkering with hazardous explosives like my kin. Not that cooking doesn't pose its dangers. I mean, it does. I remember this one time this human got half his body covered in burning olive oil. Boy, was that funny. You know what they say. You can't take the heat. Get out of the kitchen. But I think working in the kitchen made me value something a little bit more than money. I cook, I create, and I'm incredibly excited by what I do. and I feel I could do so much more. And while my kin might be tinkering with dangerous mechanics, nearly losing limbs, I was usually making something that would make cooking things a little faster. Okay, maybe I cut a few corners. And let's say maybe on some level I was responsible for that hot oil spill. But I'm not one to cry over spilled milk. I'm too busy looking for the next cow. So I was raised near the most southern parts of the Eastern Kingdom in the jungles of Stranglethorn Vale. But the venture company and I cooked a lot of raptor eggs. At least that's what I got started with. We hunted a lot of raptors. Their meat was pretty good at the time, but I look back on it now, and to this day, I would think it was somewhat tough meat to chew. I had a lot of work of beating this meat with hammers, and when a high-class customer came into my kitchen to eat, I would prepare more tender raptor meat. So I got kind of good at beating meat. Grow up. I can see you laughing over there. With hammers and cutting things with knives. A lot of meat is best when you cook it within the hour you killed it. Not raptor meat, though. Eggs are good, though. I enjoy those even to this day. So my, as you say, notoriety as a cook got really high, but the chef's reputation I worked under was pretty good. I mean, even though I invented new tools to make cooking faster, when I worked under a chef, they got all the credit. But if they exploded or malfunctioned, yeah, just blame it on the reckless kid goblin. But after you washed soot out of your eyes, we discovered something wonderful. The fire where the horses used to be just turned into something that smelled delicious. Yeah, I got fired from the kitchen. And what was worse is the chef moved to Booty Bay and made a fortune off my raptor and egg recipes. And since the kitchen had no good cooks or chefs, they tore the kitchen down. Some of my goblin brothers and sisters were impressed by my inventions and asked me if I could work making wooden shredders. But I worked half-heartedly and made most of my meals on a campfire. I remember on my 10th birthday, a bunch of my coworkers pitched in and got me a big stewing pot. At least that's what they said. I had seen those stewing pots at nearby troll tribes that littered the jungles. They most likely stole it, but they had a whole bunch of ingredients that I had never seen before. Fish, flowers, herbs, meat, crawfish. Not many vegetables or mushrooms, though. All in all, there wasn't a lot of food that was native to Stranglethorn Vale, but it all smelled really good. I wished I had a whole kitchen, but this pot was twice as tall as a fully grown goblin. I asked my brothers, "Where did you get all this stuff?" They pointed at these giant, fat, tan creatures with horns on their heads. I had never seen one of them before in my young life, but they were ogres. The venture company had just started employing them. So I prepared the best meal I've ever made, and the smell brought everyone to the pot. But I wanted those cheating, backstabbing humans away from my food. I wasn't sure about the ogres, though. They seemed all right. So I told my kin the story I'm telling you right now, and they told me, "Ratchet, you're not like us, and I know you don't like how greedy we may come out to be, but we all had to learn this lesson the hard way. Even the laborers of this company have been griped out of our pay, and we have starved because some of us tried to have a kind and carefree attitude towards life." I asked my kin why people take advantage of us. They said, "Look at us. We are short. They have to look down on us like we are children. They think it's cute when we try to take the profit that is rightfully ours. And while gnomes might be fine with that, we aren't. We take knives to the Achilles tendon, bring them down to our level and say, 'Listen, if you don't pay me, I'll kill you.' We goblins have got to stick together in hard times and make them see the downfall for underestimating us. I'll tell you this now, because if you talk to any goblin, they will tell you a time they were cheated out of their profit. But it's still relieving to cook and serve food for my brothers of the workplace. I fed the ogres, and boy, could they eat. I talked to some of them, and they weren't that bright. They were downright loud. I asked him, where did they get this food? And he just pointed up. I asked, You got them from the sky? The ogre shook his head. North. You small for goblin, but cook good. He tried to pat me on the head. I tried to move his huge hand off, but he was so massive. I couldn't stop him from petting me like a dog. I bit his hand and grabbed it almost like I was feral again. The claws I had as an infant hadn't completely gone, so when he pulled away, I dug into his flesh with him. The ogre screamed out in pain as I crawled around his body like a lizard, making strange tongue cries. I remember everything going red and then black. When I woke up, I was locked in a dark room and I yelled, "Hey, let me out! I'm sorry!" My Nana opened the door in full plate armor and armed with a shield and hammer.
You know, I thought you being 10 now that I wouldn't have to worry about this happening again. You messed up that ogre pretty bad, you know.
The ogre I messed up was waiting for me. He had scratches and bruises on most of the parts of his body. I remembered that I did have my hammer in my pocket. It was gone when I was locked up. There were two other ogres that were with him. The one I messed up pointed at me. "That's him there," he said. The two ogres looked at him and then me and broke into laughter. "Rocco got beat by that? He's small even for a goblin." Rocco pulled a club from his back. "Me smash you this time," he said. Nana banged her club against her shield and got the ogres' attention. They stopped laughing.
Goblins are dangerous, especially when they're kids, and the babies are downright deadly.
Rocco laughed. "Mommy Goblin thinks she can fight. Me smash you too. Boys, we make goblin stew tonight."
Nana smiled and took a deep breath. Well, if violence is the only thing you can understand.
I had seen her catch the fastest feral goblins and throw them into their holes and even kill a few, but I never saw her fight an enemy that was 4 times her size. In a flash, Nana zoomed behind the ogre's legs and smashed her hammer so hard into the back of the ogre's kneecaps that he went airborne and smashed into the ground. But she didn't quit there. She smashed her hammer into the ogre's head, fracturing his skull. I saw her smile and looked at the other two. The second ogre smashed his hammer at her, and she moved to the side ever so slightly. She could have completely dodged it, but she moved a few inches away. "Clear!" she yelled. She shocked the second by touching his metal hammer, and he fell to the ground, shaking. He wasn't breathing. Nana had a smile from ear to ear as she approached Rocco. "Nana, don't!" I yelled. She stopped, but she kept her eyes on Rocco.
Why not? They came here to kill you and my kids.
"Measles wants to kill you. Just him. Me not understand why Mama can fight better than all other goblins," Rocco pleaded. Nana put her hammer and shield away. "I'm not a mama. I'm a nanny. I deliver the babies and I care for them. I told you, kid, and baby goblins are dangerous." That's what Nana said. Rocco just looked at her. "Me's not understand, Nanny. Baby's not dangerous. Baby's cute and cuddly." What an idiot. Nana took something from a cage. It was my pet rabbit. I was planning on eating him, but I warmed up to him and kept him as a pet. "Nana, what are you doing with Jeff?" I asked. Nana held him upside down by his legs, and Jeff screamed a disturbing yell of pain. "I'm teaching you both a lesson, Ratchettee." That's what Nana said to me. I rushed toward her to try and save Jeff, but she wasn't just fast. She was strong, too. She grabbed me by my face with her free hand, took me to the ground, and smashed her metal boot on my chest. I flayed and scratched at her armor, but she just looked down at me, holding my rabbit. I flayed and made the same tongue roars I made before. I felt everything go red again. I saw her look at Rocco. I could feel the rage building again, and I started pushing my hips to get her off me.
Don't you even think about going feral again, Ratchettee, or this time I will kill you.
"You kill you son?" Rocco questioned. I felt the rage leave me. I had to survive, and I cried. You can't feed Jeff to those monsters. I cried. She stomped on my chest again. Those monsters are your people, Ratchettee. You were like that, and so was I. If this ogre doesn't know the truth about our people, he will attack again with more of his friends. And if you don't learn to control your rage, things like this are going to keep happening. She pointed at my rabbit. He was still screaming, trying to lift himself up. For worst, you'll be dead. I've raised you for 10 years now, Ratchettee, but I'd rather see you dead than as a mindless giblin. She kicked me away and opened the door to the goblin baby holes. It was too small for Rocco to get through, but he got down to her level and watched through the bars. Rocco, could you grab Ratchettee and make sure he doesn't go anywhere? Don't worry, he won't go feral again. He grabbed me by my shirt and held onto my arm. I got him, Rocco said. I didn't watch, but I heard Jeff make one last cry, and she threw him down into the hole. Then I heard them, those same high-pitched tongues roar they had always made. But this time, it was with my screaming rabbit. I didn't know what they were doing to him. He must have been screaming for about a long 30 seconds. Rocco let me go to hold on to his ears, and I ran out the door. I rushed over to where my birthday present was and knocked it over and beat it with my bare hands. I couldn't understand why I was alive. Why was I born a monster? Why couldn't I just cook food and make people happy? I never wanted to be an animal or a greedy taskmaster that made people's lives miserable. So why was I only given these two options? Well, Rocco saw me crying. He didn't say anything at first, just walked around and whispered things in other ogres' ears. I decided to sleep outside. It was still warm in my pot, and if trolls tried to kidnap me, I could save them the trouble of trying to put me into a pot to cook me. But when I woke up, I was in my bed, and Nana was looking over me. What do you want? I asked her. She was asleep, but she was sleeping sitting down.
Someone would like to say something to you.
You can come in now. Rocco came through the door. Ratchettee, me sorry about Bunny. Me also sorry me tried to smash you. Be friends? I got up. You don't want to be my friend, Rocco. My people are nothing but mindless animals or greedy bastards. We can never be anything else. I looked over at Nana when I said that. Rocco smashed the side of the door. No, Ratchettee not greedy. Ratchettee not animal. Ratchettee nice. Ratchettee cry when Nanny kill Bunny. Ratchettee has birthday party and gets no gifts, no gold. Ratchettee only gets food and stolen troll pot, and Ratchettee shares with all goblins and even stranger ogres. And me's ruin it for you. Me so sorry, Ratchettee. Please be friends. Me make sure no one hurt you. I smiled. I looked over at Nana, and she just nodded her head and smiled. Okay, I forgive you. And sure, we could be friends, but I don't need a bodyguard, and don't call me Ratchettee anymore. It's just Ratchet. Just tell me, where did you get all that food? Rocco breathed in hard. Me tells you, we get it from north. Like how far north? Like Stormwind or Ironforge, or maybe Lordaeron? Nana asked. Rocco shook his big old hands and his big old head. No, not far north, just north. So it's only a few miles away north. Can we walk there? Rocco held on to his head. No, north is place. North is name. North End. You mean Northrend? You got the food from Northrend? Nana finally had it. Northrend? Are you sure it's not North End? That name makes more sense, I added.
I'm sure the Ventures was thinking about expanding there, but right now it's crawling with undead. They might have picked up these ogres there,
Nana explained.
Rocco, are you from Northrend?
No, me just work as mercenary, but me no good fighting. Me just good at smashing. Undead very scary, Rocco explained.
It's been a growing problem in Lordaeron, which is why we weaponize the woodcutters. But if they're heading toward Northrend, I guess we don't have much to worry about, Nana explained.
So, me and Rocco became friends. He helped me fix woodcutters and carried around the big metal pot. Then I wanted to cook someplace else. Engineering school didn't really interest me at all that much, but I did learn a little about volatile fuels. And since I had a whole bunch of herbs I used for cooking, alchemy came really easy to me. At the very least, I could make potions that tasted really good, but I wanted to open another kitchen. This is when I started charging people for my food and potions. Some of my kin were proud of me at first. I was finally handling gold and hoarding it like a goblin should. But some people didn't like it and started borrowing or stealing. I had to convince Rocco to collect. He was a teddy bear, though. But he could at least look menacing, and he could break stuff. Yeah, I didn't like living like that, though. Rocco had bruises from time to time. He told me a lot about the orc invasion and the humans' war, about what happened in Outland. He was one of the smartest ogres I've ever met. No, he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. He just talked funny. When I tried to correct his speaking by saying I instead of me, or I have, not me guts, he explained that it was his accent. That ogre writing had over 2,000 hieroglyphic letters, but as more cities were destroyed and clans fled to the wilds learning to speak with the tablets and hammers and nails that couldn't be taught, Rocco knew how to write enough hieroglyphic letters to send messages to Kalimdor. He never ever wrote on paper once, though. Said it was meaningless to write on something that could be destroyed so easily. He said when the orcs drank the demon blood, the first thing they destroyed was the books, but the tablets and walls filled with hieroglyphics was how he learned to read. He taught me how to read and write in common and speak and write orcish. But those hieroglyphics, the ogre language in general, he taught me how to read and write in common and speak and write orcish. But those hieroglyphics, the ogre language in general, Rocco was an endangered species. He was way smarter than I gave him credit for. He wasn't big on math, though. He could add and subtract and multiply and divide with some practice, but building, engineering, you have to know a lot more. But he did show me something we both came up with. We were talking one day and he told me, "What's you's want in life? You's not happy here?" I told him once I saved up enough money, I'll build a kitchen here and import goods from Northrend, maybe all around the world. For gold? Rocco asked. Of course, you have to have gold if you want to do things. Kitchens don't pay for themselves, you know, I explained. Ratchet has lots of gold. Rocco also has lots of gold, but use food tasting bad. Does Ratchet care? You use same corn oil for 2 weeks, Rocco complained. Someone needs to watch out for the gold. Once we get more shipments, I'll be able to spend it on food and kitchen equipment. But since we have to work on woodcutters to pay for the venture's protection, I don't have time to be looking for ingredients right now. I can only feed the people willing to pay. I said it, but it hurt to hear the words come out.
And you let them steal?
Rocco stated.
I was angered by that. I let my people borrow my money, Rocco, with interest. You collect it. It's why I feed you for.
Okay.
I was angered by that. I let my people borrow my money, Rocco, with interest. You collect. It's why I feed you for free.
Rocco crossed his arms.
You hate use people because they greedy, Ratchet. I know like use food and use people not like use food. I let some eat for free and even give yous gold for free, he confessed. Why would you do that? Is there something funny about stealing profit?
He wasn't laughing, but I hoped it was a joke.
Please tell me you're joking.
Rocco just stood there, arms crossed, and kept looking in my eyes. You're fired, Rocco. There are a lot of ogres working here. I don't need you. I look back on that time with a lot of regret. Rocco took the pot of 2-week-old molten corn oil and spilled it on the ground.
Then you no need this.
Rocco took the club off his back and smashed this metal and stone pot so hard it made a spark that fell into the oil. The oil took blaze and a river of burning oil went towards the work areas. That oil burned for a long time, and fire burned a whole week's worth of food from shredding. Me and Rocco weren't on the best terms. I couldn't cook at all, which made me really depressed. And I didn't have Rocco to help with the wood shredders, which was also depressing. The venture company found out it was us, or so I thought, and the foreman asked us to explain why we were on bad terms. I explained to the foreman it was Rocco's fault. He caused the fire when he spilled the corn oil and broke my cooking pot, and it caused a spark and burned all the wood and some of the jungle. The foreman laughed and said, I was asking why you guys were at one time thick as thieves and now you won't even look at each other. But thanks for that. We wrote it off as a fossil fuel leak that went bad, but the first time it's happened. So I confessed for nothing. So we can forget what I just said, right? I mean, it's Rocco's fault. You know what they say, the bigger they are, the harder they avoid work, I claimed. Nope, you're going to pay for this, the foreman said with a laugh. Nope, you're going to pay for this, the foreman said with a laugh. But I am wondering about that oil you were using. It burned for a long time. Could you make more?
That oil 3 week old. Me glad it went up in smoke. It's nearly poisoning us. That oil was 3 week old. Me glad it went up in smoke. It nearly poisoning us, Rocco said, still angry at me.
You both are in trouble, the foreman explained. Don't think I haven't heard about your bad cooking, Ratchettee, and your property damage, Rocco. We just wrote it off as goblin acting like a goblin.
Hear that, Ratchet? Use everything you said you hate. A greedy destroyer of things, Rocco teased.
I looked at the foreman like I was hoping he would do or say something after hearing something that I was his people and he was mocking us.
Greed is a means to an end, Rocco. Our goals are what drives us, not always just our profits. And you, Ratchettee, you can't just blow off someone that helped you get there. That's why I wanted to talk to you both. But that fire, people died. And that's enough to get you both hanged. Now, I'm sorry to say, you will be held prisoner until we decide what to do with you. So from there, I shared a cell with Rocco. I fought when they tried to arrest me, but Rocco went quietly. So, at that time, I had a lot of time to work on my alchemy, trying to recreate the corn oil I made before until they figured out what to do with us. Rocco asked me, What are you going to do when you make the fuel?
I was busy trying to work. I don't know, Rocco. It took 3 weeks of that oil rotting in a pot for it to burn like it did. We will most likely be hanged before that time.
If you makes it, they let us go?
Rocco asked. I rolled my eyes. Yes, Rocco, they'll let us go, mocking his accent.
Then everything goes back to normal?
Rocco let out a sigh.
What's about me and you?
I laughed. There is no you and me, Rocco. Once I make this fuel, I'll be leaving a false recipe. They'll know it takes 3 weeks to make. That will be more than enough time for me to get out of here so I never have to see another Venture member again. Rocco held on to 2 bars on our cage. You said these were used people. I half smiled and looked outside the cage. Some of those goblins owe me a lot of gold and would like to see us hanged, so they don't have to pay it back. All the while, they were stealing from me. What could I do to stop them? They were always holding back. Once I figure this out, I'm going to Iron Forge, using this fuel to build tanks that will smash this whole encampment to the ground. Do I hold you back? Rocco asked. What about cooking? You use this to like making people happy with used food. I just looked up at him. Couldn't think of anything to say at the time. They don't hold you back. You do. We should leave because they will kill us, but should just go and never come back. Vengeance not help anyone. When ogres attack Groms for destroying ogres' cities, it didn't bring our culture back. We just lose more ogres, and the ones alive only know war. Now, there are no smart ogres, Rocco told me. Well, what should I do now? I asked. What makes Ratchet happy? Answering a question with a question. It used to be cooking, but I don't want to be here anymore, I said, seeming hopeless. We could go to North Rend, feed mercenaries. No goblins or adventures there, Rocco suggested. And ingredients, all those things you brought back. Do they have kitchens there? I continued. They got inns with food and rooms, so yes, maybe, he said. Then we can go. You can take me there, right? I was pretty excited. Yes, Rocco answered. Great, so I guess I better get back to work. We want to get out of here, I said at the time. No need. Rocco pulled 2 ends of the bars and they snapped off like twigs. Like I said, he was smarter than your average ogre. I stole some keys to get Rocco out of his cell, and we stole a rowboat and made our way to Northrend. Not the whole way, you know. Caught a bigger ship that took us there.